2TC is an achievement in Balloons Tower Defense 6 where you need to have 1+1 towers in order to complete the achievement, so 2 towers. Today we're going to be doing this with the mid-game beast Crossbow Master and... Wait, you're not Superstorm. You're called Monarch of Storms, so you've been given a name change but also a pretty big change in what you can do. It can actually do decent damage against the BAD, in which in the past it was almost useless against. So when it comes to the build order, we obviously cannot get Monarch of the Storms first because A, it's stupidly expensive and we won't be able to get the Monarch of Storms by then because B, we need Crossbow Master for around 59. Camo lead balloons, yeah, they're a pretty big problem. Okay, we do have a red balloon problem. I was hoping to get the crossbow first before we do anything else, like put the druids down, but maybe just put you on strong first and then put you on first afterwards could be the key to all of this. Yeah, things looking good so far. Put you back on first and that should be good. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Crossbow it is. Now, in a lot of scenarios, you could probably say that having the top cross path with Crossbow Master is a little bit better nowadays because of the additional pierce that you give with the top cross path. But there is one round in which you would always say that very quick shots is better than over more pierce. Round 100 because of single target damage. Actually, let me make that more clear. It's the amount of damage that you can do to a target at any given point in time. If you throw out more bolts, then obviously you do more damage as time goes on, but not like the bolts get more powerful the more that you throw it, the more you throw them. Sorry. Hard Thorns, Druid Reach, Heart of Vengeance. Yeah, in this tail, we're going to go with the increased attack speed and longer range over having the means of throwing more thorns and being able to regrow balloons. Sharpshooter now online, which means occasionally we do have critical hits, yes. I would like to have my own Golden Justice at home, please. Golden Justice at home. Where is 27 gonna go? Nowhere, that's where, but we need hard thorns for the lead balloons. This converts it from a sharp damage type to a normal damage type. I imagine one day Ninja Key will change this so that it can only pop frozen balloons, change it from sharp to shatter, etc. Because I have a theory that one day Ninja Key will remove the normal damage type altogether. Yeah, because in update 49, Ninja Kiri removed the normal damage type from Bizarre Bomber's bombing runs, but then they gave it some extra smash damage, which I think actually is quite an evil thing. I know this sounds stupid, but the bombs themselves create more Zebra balloons in the late stage of the game where you go to free play rounds. Like, the extra damage to ceramics means that the bombing runs themselves can just produce black balloons and zebra balloons. So I think it is a buff, but it's more or less a nerf in disguise. And now we have Ball Lightning, which when I first played the game, for some odd reason, I called it Ball of Lightning. And also when I first played this game, the Ball Lightning never ever throws balloons. Actually, when I started playing this game, there was no such thing as the frigid damage type, which most of us would remember. 39 is completed. What about round 40 and the first Moab? As long as we land our crits, we should be fine, which we are. Obviously, every tale of Two Tower Chimps, or any kind of adventure in general, the last round is always the most important round, because it's the round in which you end the journey on. So let's say, or going up to round 60 on the normal difficulty, the final opponent there is the BFB. So you gotta think about having enough single target damage to tackle the BFB. But you still have the accessibility of accessing a tower which can slow down the BFB or ensure that it can sometimes goes backwards in its progression. But there's nothing for the bad. There's only means of Super Brittle, Embrittlement, Glue Strike, Glue Storm, Cripple Moab, of being able to Ensure that the target itself can receive more damage from all attacks. Oh, and also the Grand Saboteur's ability. I know it's sabotage, but I call it saboteur because it sounds more fancy. If the ability itself is active at the end of 99, then go towards around 100, then the bad automatically loses 25% of its HP, which is a pretty sizable amount. So I didn't even see the amount of money that we have, because I always think 20k, maybe sometimes halfway towards getting one of our tier 5s, but not really. But we're getting the Crossbow Master. Another upgrade which I think will one day probably lose its normal damage type. Also, when upgraded to Monarch of Storms, all of the like little tornadoes and the ball lightnings, and also the super tornadoes that it makes, they all bounce off the edge of the map. It would probably be quite OP if it can just bounce off objects as well. Not just the edge of the map, but objects as well. Calls forth a relentless barrage of Superstorms. Blasts all balloon types for massive damage and blows them away from the exit. Which is why we have the Monarch of Storms near the exit of the track, so that if the bad actually pops around this point, then the DDTs that the bad spawns can easily be dealt with. Whereas if sometimes the I keep trying to call it Superstorm, Monarch of Storms is a bit too far away, then the Superstorms it generates does not actually catch the DDTs, meaning that the DDTs will escape from the track. And in any 2TC scenario, you've always got to work backwards. Does this combination work on round 100? Okay, if it works on round 100, what other rounds could it die to? Let's look at 98. Super RBE round has the most amount of RBE of any round in the game. Does the combination also work on that particular scenario? You could say that a whole bunch of 1 PS towers would be able to work on around 100 if they all have high damage. Round 98 has a lot of balloons on it, so it wouldn't work there, having both towers having 1 PS. I'm looking at you, Blazing Sun. But then again, your fire damage... That's actually another tower I've got to explore in a future 2TC as of the time of this recording, because the Blazing Sun has received nothing but buffs, I think, in Update 50. So we've got to check out that one. Somebody was able to do a 2TC with Psy and the Blazing Sun. Don't ask me how that is possible, but I think it's only possible on this map because of the map shape. You need to be able to ignite all of the DDTs so that then they can then be popped. But then if that combination goes through round 98, what's another really difficult round? Okay, round 95. A very classic, incredibly difficult round with the gimmick of so many balloons being camo, a lot of them being purple, a lot of them being lead. But then the second half of round 95, 30 DDTs. Very problematic for a lot of possible combinations. You can also put 93 and 90 into equation, because can you even have a means of countering DDTs at that given point in time? If you can't counter them, then obviously your plan folds apart there, because you could afford the tier 5 on round 95, but could you actually get it on round 90 when the first DDT spawns? Kind of like the Flying Fortress. If you don't have the Flying Fortress on round 90, or if you don't get it from like the legend which you pop on round 90, then 9 times out of 10 your run is just game, set and match. The other 10% being that your other tower can actually do DDT damage, like say the Prince of Darkness, for example, a very, very good DDT counter, or Balloon Incineration nowadays. That's also a very, very good DDT counter, which the mortar you can afford nowadays on round 6, which is brilliant. Essentially making Moon Landing an automatic beginner map, because those 3 craters on Moon Landing, yeah, they're really good if you're an explosive and you don't have like line of sight problems. But then in other scenarios, it could be like, is 78 a problem? 79? Perhaps somewhere in the 80s, like when there's 4 ZUMGs on the pitch. 85, that is. Or could it even be like one of the mid rounds when you're trying to climb up to that tier 5? Perhaps I'm boring a lot of you, but sometimes people like when I go on one of these ventures, which is not about the game, but it is about the game, but it's not directly about the game because I'm talking about something else. And how the hell did you have more pops than you? I do not know, but we are relying on good old reliable. Round 78 actually could be a bit problematic here, but the Crossbow Master does pack a lot of punch, and I need you all to be bunched up so the Crossbow Master can just wipe you all out simultaneously. I don't care. Like, there's lots of special population combos where the 50s are actually the most difficult part of the game, or let's say 60 and 61, because you're just shy of being able to afford the special populations upgrades, which means you can get those Marines, which also have the normal damage type, which I feel one day Ninja Kiwi will remove. And the other things have a normal damage type. The sticky bombs from the Master Bomber, for example. The Monarch of Storms, Superstorms. Like, from the trend in which Ninja Kiwi's doing, with a lot of towers, as of like the past 10 or 20 updates, they keep removing the normal damage type from the tower. Because our bomber used to not have the normal damage type. Then its bombing runs got the normal damage type. And then and they decided that, well, because Duke did the 1 TC if you start with 865 cash, it's like, nah, perhaps it's best if we don't give this thing normal damage type to its bombing runs at the very least. So the Tsar Bomber is one of 2 aces, which I don't mind a little bit of microing. Flying Fortress has a little bit of microing, but that's only like where it currently is on the map. And Tsar Bomber has an ability, but the Sky Shredder, I despise ace microing with that thing. And also the preluders to it as well. Will it be this round? It looks like it. Yeah, we've got the Monarch of Storms now. Actually, it's a bit more of a fancy name than just Superstorm for the upgrade here. If you think about it, Spirit of the Forest, that's a great name for it. Spirit of the Forest, Avatar of Wrath, Monarch of Storms. Do you know that if you start with Spirit of the Forest, so S, Avatar of Wrath, A, and Monarch of Storms, M, what does that spell? Sam. And who works at Ninja Kiwi? Sam does. So I wonder if somewhere down the line, Ninja Kiwi is planning on the Druid Paragon, and it's just called S.A.M. It's just like the code name, and it's called something entirely different. It's probably highly unlikely, but I'd just like to think that somehow, somewhere down the line, that is actually a thing. So you look at these storms, how they bounce off the map, and all these... No, wait, the balls themselves don't bounce off. It's just... Sometimes they... No, it's a fact... No, I'm being incorrect. The Superstorms actually create the ball of lightnings, which means that it looks like they bounce off the map. But no, the balls themselves don't, but just the Superstorm does, which produces the ball lightnings. Alongside this, the Heart of Thunder has also been given a damage buff when you do reach the Monarch of Storms. Monarch is a title of like a royal figure, regardless of male or female. Usually it's one tower or the other that does the majority of the damage, around 100. But in this case, both towers matter. Now, I'm not going back to all of my Superstorm videos and change the name and change the audio in those videos to now match the update 50 version of the Superstorm called Monarch of Storms. I'm not doing that. I'm calling this Monarch of Storms because it was recorded in update 50, okay? I'm not going back to 49, 48, 47, etc. and change all my Superstorm videos to Monarch of Storms, because when you look on those videos, it's called Superstorm. So we now have the utility of being able to blow back everything that is not a BAD, which means the game is now certain until round 100, which I'm sure we'll be able to do, because the only thing that was stopping this particular combination from working, especially like on logs, where it was like 1,000 or 2,000 away from being able to take down the bad on that map, was just decent bad damage from the tier 5 druid. That's the only thing that was stopping it, but now it has decent bad damage. But speaking of paragons, Ninja Kiwis announced the next 2 Paragons, the Bomb Paragon for Halloween and the Ice Paragon for Christmas. So that'll be very exciting to see what kind of creations, because it's got the stun and the explosion radius of the top crossbar. You've got the Moab damage from the middle path, and then you got the spread damage of the bottom path. Like would it just have, like, let's say every so often it can just create a bomb blitz passive ability regardless of what's on the screen? Or when lives are lost, it just instantly kills everything that is a fortified ZMG or below and just does massive amount of damage to the bad. We've almost got enough money to buy ourselves another Monarch of Storms. You can't have 2 on the pitch. Actually, there is one other way I can think of nerfing the Monarch of Storms, and that is to take away its ability to detect and pop camo balloons. So when it comes to both towers getting 1 million pops apiece, I don't think the Crossbow Master is going to quite do it, if I'm going to be honest. But we do have a huge amount of round 98 balloons to contest against when it comes to this combination. And obviously the Crossbow Master is clearing out everything in which the Monarch of Storms cannot get, because it's being PS capped quite a lot. But the majority of the round is now done and dusted. Now, another Monarch combination that was discovered in this update was the Monarch of Storms and Ultra Boost combination founded by McEnroe, actually. Pretty cool guy. But that combination only really works on logs because of the map shape and length. Like, you need to have the Crossbow Master, I think, in the center of the map to get as much damage as possible. But then the Monarch needs to be in a place where it can hit the bad as much as it possibly can. No, wait. I just went back to Crossbow Master, not Ultra Boost. You need to have both towers relatively central to the map. Oh, speaking of Ultra Boost, we're 9 away from being able to afford it. Swings and roundabouts, everybody. Right, you're now bandaged, which means that you are very, very close to being popped. Good, good. Okay, that is down, and all the DTs are down. Good, you're very close. You were very close to the exit. Go back to where you came from, which is near the entrance. So aside from a little early game hiccup there, that is a very successful run. But also, I think this is a relatively easy 2 tower chimps combination to pull off. But not just your combination which you're doing, but also where they are on the map. Like, you could say that you have all the power in the world, but if it's in a stupid spot, then obviously it can't distribute that power out to begin with, earnestly. But these are 2 really good spots here. But this is a better spot for Monarch, this is a better spot for Crossbow. You want this near the exit, you want this covering the majority of the map, which both towers are doing in their own respective ways. Yeah, you were only good for the mid-game, I'm sorry, but once we got this upgrade, yeah, you were kind of demoted to just the tower that just clears up bits and pieces here and everywhere. As you could tell, there was a lot of decent bad damage there. I'm really happy with that. So thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of the video down in the comments sections below, and let me know what tower Ninja Kiwi's gonna nerf next when it comes to its damage type. Maybe even something will go from Plasma to Frigid. Or maybe Plasma will just not exist, because that could also be considered OP in its own way. Pass around 95. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care of yourselves, everybody.